Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. We're now only a couple of weeks away from the playoffs. Got lots to talk about heading into those playoffs with Kyrie being back now full time, some blow-ups and a bit of drama in Miami this week, and a bunch of other things that are sure to follow. But we're going to start with that drama in Miami this week with Coach Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler seeming to have a bit of run-in during the middle of the week. And they've now lost 3 games in a row. There could be some doubts heading into Miami about with the playoffs about to start. I'll get your thoughts on this first, Gabe. Is there anything that a drama? Is it just something that we can kind of overlook? And should we be concerned about this Miami team headed into the playoffs?
All right, so the first 3-game losing streak, 2 of them are to Golden State and Philly. I don't think at the end of the day that's too big of a deal in the grand scheme. However, that game yesterday, or I guess Friday, because this comes out a little bit later, that game on Friday that was terrible. You go in, I think, up 15 after 3 quarters, and you almost lose by double digits to the Knicks of all teams. And if you look at this Knicks roster, it's like, bro, you blew that big of a lead to that team.
Without
Like,
Julius Randle?
without Julius Randle, without Derrick Rose, without Kemba Walker, any casual fans probably don't even know 5 players that played on this team. And so it's like, bro, that's the team that you lost that badly to. That's just, to me, that's kind of unacceptable, especially in a playoff race that's getting very close. And so I can see why there was rising tension. However, I think that just kind of spawned from the competitiveness of pretty much everybody on that roster and in that organization. I think when you're that competitive and things aren't going right, tensions start to flare up. But I think they're mature enough to be able to handle it. And I think they'll just use it as fuel to really get in tip-top shape and play their best going forward.
I think those losses are not super concerning, but they are a little like eyebrow raising because you lost to the Sixers without James Harden, without Joel Embiid, and basically Tyrese Maxey was doing whatever he wanted in the fourth quarter. Lost to the Warriors without Steph Curry. I don't think Klay Thompson played. And I don't think Draymond Green played either, if I'm not mistaken. I think they was missing like basically their big three. And then the game last night, like you said, Gabe, it was just a complete meltdown. So this isn't a Miami Heat way. Every team goes through bad stretches in the season, but you're getting closer to playoff time, you would want to be playing your best basketball, even though, like, we've seen teams going to the playoffs not playing their best and go on a big run. But they're not that far ahead of the Eastern Conference to where they can be going into the postseason playing like this. They really got to get it together in this last 10 or so games of the season because teams behind them are, we were talking a couple weeks ago, like, nobody would want to play the Miami Heat. Now I think everybody would be a little comfortable playing the Miami Heat in the first round because they're just not looking good. They're not looking like a team that can make a legit run to eventually reach the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I think they definitely could do with a little bit more success and confidence headed into the playoffs. That was a Warriors team that did not have Steph, Draymond, or Clay. Damian Lee dropped 22 on them, and Jordan Poole dropped 30. And full respect to Damian Lee and especially Jordan Poole. But when you're giving up 52 points to those guys, it's never going to be that successful of a night. I don't think this recent run of games in of themselves is enough to be worrisome. But when you're putting up 15 points in a fourth quarter against the Knicks, it kind of just goes to show the main problem with this team moving forward is going to be that isolation type scoring, that half-court offense that they're going to have to run a lot more come playoff time might be a bit of a weakness for them. Jimmy Butler isolation scoring has just gotten worse throughout the years for him, specifically from deep. Kyle Lowry is nowhere near as good of a scorer as he was a few years ago. After Tyler Hero, they don't really have any great options for that on a consistent level other than Jimmy for mid-range at times. So I think that's something to look out for. And the fact that as of right now, they'd have a fairly good chance of playing Brooklyn in the first round is also a concern because I think Brooklyn could definitely give them some problems. Although from a matchup standpoint, it's probably better than some of the other teams across the top of the conference because I think they struggle more against a team with a good defense than they do a good offense. Someone that can stifle their offense is probably more of a problem. But they're definitely not as feared of a team as you were mentioning, Tyrik, than they were a couple of weeks ago, that's for sure.
See, here's something that I do want to mention, though, is that since that Philly game, Tyler Hero hasn't played in the last 2. And I feel like that's a very big deal because
100%.
as we see, the biggest issue with this team is usually offensive stagnation. And I feel like he's kind of become their go-to guy that can really just go get you one when you need it to kind of kick things into gear, kind of spark some things. And so without him, it really makes sense that, okay, they get into a fourth quarter, everybody's kind of gassed. They need something to really get things going and really close out the game, and he's just not there. I feel like we've known Jimmy as a closer for a long time now, but if there's a night where he's off and Tyler's not playing, it's very hard to accomplish that goal.
That's true. And Tyler Hero's been amazing all season long. But in my eyes, it's like if that's the person you're really relying on to close games out for you in the postseason, I'm not super confident in this team, man. Jimmy Butler got to step up. He has to be better. Hopefully once the playoffs come around, we see playoff Jimmy in full effect. But he can't be having meltdowns on the sideline. That's one thing, bro. You can't be doing that stuff. Like, that's inexcusable. We gave him the benefit of the doubt back in the day in Minnesota, but now, nah, man. You're in Miami. You're a championship caliber team, so you gotta act accordingly, bro. I don't know what was said on that sideline, but he got to be better. And Jimmy has not been amazing like the second half of the season, bro. He's not been amazing, so he really has to step it up, man. He's the best player on this team for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. They need to be able to rely on more than Tyler Hero when it comes to late game half court offense in the playoffs. Jimmy doesn't need to necessarily become a 3-point shooter again overnight, but he at least needs to be able to be more consistent on offense. No doubt about it.
Jimmy always elevates his game late in the season, though. Like, he's always been a guy that, like, postseason, it's not the same guy. I mean, their finals run, they were, like a 4 or 5 seed? It's like he kind of plays okay. The team does well enough. He leads them to where they kind of need to be, like, in range to make that push. And then it's like, this team usually plays the best when they're counted out. That just seems to be kind of their mantra almost, or like their kind of pattern or identity. It's like, you don't think they're going to be anything. Most people probably don't even think they're top 3 to come out of this conference anymore. That's a scary thought, because that's when this team strikes the hardest, when you aren't thinking about them, when you kind of underlook them. I know we were talking before the pod, we're like, yeah, if our teams are going to face a top 3 team in this conference, we would want to face Miami. And I think that's kind of what can make them scary.
Yeah, but also, I hate to be this guy, but it's not the bubble. Like, you're going to have to go to another team's arena and win some games in order to win a championship. And I don't know, like, I feel less confident, not because I think this team is better than the bubble team, but I feel like the East is miles better than what it was back in 2020. I feel like the Celtics are better, the Bucks are better, Philly's obviously better. And even like the lesser tier teams, like I think the Raptors are just as good as that bubble team. I think obviously Brooklyn, they're going to be a team to contend with in the postseason. The Cavs are better. Like the Bulls, the East is a lot better, bro. So Miami, they got to be on their A game, man. I mean, they've been the top seed basically like majority of the season, so they gotta act like it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Definitely still some questions to be asked of that group, and they're going to have to figure some things out as they head into the postseason and hopefully can have themselves a good playoff run. But talking about another contender in the East that's a little bit more uncertain than Miami, we got news this week that Kyrie is now officially going to be able to play at home in Brooklyn for the first time this year. Boding well for Brooklyn come playoff time. He still won't be able to play in a potential play-in matchup in Toronto, but outside of that, he will be available for Brooklyn at home come playoff time, making them a little bit more of a threat in the Eastern Conference. How serious of a threat do you consider them to be in the playoffs, Tyrik?
We said before we started recording, but if I'm the Boston Celtics, I'm avoiding the top 2 seeds. I don't want to be a top 2 team. Because the idea of even playing this team in the first round, whether Ben Simmons is playing or not, which we're just going to assume he's not playing, I don't want to see Kyrie and KD in a 7-game series in the first round as a top 2 seed. That's just like – that sounds like a grueling battle, and I don't want to have to face them, man. Even if Ben Simmons is not playing, this team is still going to be something to contend with. Nobody wants to see them in the first round, bro, especially Kyrie in the postseason, KD in the postseason. That's enough right there. Seth Curry's had one of the best, or if not the best season of his career. And other guys, they're going to be able to feed off of them. So it's a scary team to play in the first round. So it's good to see Kyrie will be able to play home games, though. I think that's something we've just been wanting to see all year. So that's finally going to get to happen. I saw a report. They said Ben Simmons, like his back is like there's a lot less pain now. But I would be surprised if he even played at any point before the postseason or in the postseason. So this is basically the team they got going forward. But that's a scary first round matchup for sure.
Yes, assuming that they have what they have, and it's just the team they're fielding right now. Kyrie's been unstoppable recently. It's like literally nobody can do a damn thing about it. If that man wants to get some points, he's going to get some points. And he's just going to do whatever he wants. With that being said, that has not always resulted in wins in the recent games. He'll play well, KD will play well, and sometimes it's still just not enough. And so even with that, I still think they're a pretty decent threat because you get to the playoffs, stars elevate, more ISO-heavy offense. They got two of the best in the game at that. If they have you in a close one down the stretch, I'm probably betting on them over any other star duo in this conference.
Real quick, though. This is the only thing that concerns me about this team, even at full strength. I don't trust Steve Nash at all. I saw a TikTok the other day, and he was basically saying, like, there's not really any, like, just bad coaches in the league. And I got to thinking, and I'm like, Steve Nash might be, like, one of the worst. I just don't trust him, bro. Like, he doesn't really do any coaching, bro. He just puts guys in positions, basically. Like, it's really just KD and Kyrie doing the work. So I don't trust Steve Nash as a head coach in the playoff situation. But like you said, Gabe, when you got two guys of that caliber, sometimes it offsets things like bad coaching.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to see that, like, the whole matchup aspect. And I think you've seen with, like, the Heat's bubble run or, like, other recent playoff runs. Sometimes if a coach really goes out and has a good scheme and a good game plan for a different team, they can put some work in on him and cause an upset. And it's like, yeah, that makes it really hard with Nash because, yeah, you got your two stars, but then how are you maximizing the guys around them? And it seems like he has not been able to do that consistently, so that is a very big red flag.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to look into moving forward because even just the potential first-round matchup against Miami, which as of right now is very much possible, Spoelstra and how they play that defense against the Nets could be quite impactful from just a pure performance standpoint, but also from a standpoint of is Steve Nash going to be able to make those in-series adjustments that are going to be needed? Because as you said, Tyrik, Steve Nash isn't a great head coach even from an NBA standpoint, and definitely from those top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference right now was nowhere near the caliber of any of those other head coaches. And so an adjustment in series could be a question mark. They're probably lucky from a pure coaching standpoint that the Raptors would be a play-in game matchup as of right now and not a series because Nick Nurse playing X's and O's and throwing everything he would have defensively at Brooklyn, as good as Brooklyn are offensively, would probably throw some questions towards Steve Nash's coaching ability. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that impacts them moving forward. But there's no doubt Kyrie has been brilliant this year and is going to be a big part of their playoff run moving forward now that he can play at home. I'm interested to see how he continues to play into the playoffs, though, and specifically in the next year. Not that I doubt that he'll continue to play well, but I wonder how much he's been helped this year by the fact that like he hasn't had anywhere near as much playing time. He's had more rest. His knees haven't had as much effort and taxation on them. So I still think he'll continue to play well into the playoffs, but the fact that he's been able to have so much extra rest and so much more recovery on his body this year as well, I don't doubt has probably played a bit of an impact in how well he's been able to play this year.
I didn't even think about that. That's a great point. That's kind of like the bubble year, like how AD didn't have to play like the last 20 or so games of the season. So he was fresh once the playoffs came around. That's actually a good point. But I know y'all saw, I think it was earlier today, Kyrie said he's going to resign.
Yeah.
I've heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that notification and I gave myself a little chuckle. I was like, what can you do? What can you do? I assume this time it's probably a little bit more genuine because I think that they don't necessarily have that overwhelming favorite expectations, whereas I feel like a lot of people were certain that 2019 Celtics team was coming out of the East. So I feel like if this team makes the first round and then loses because they get matched up with a 1 or a 2 seed, okay, because they have Ben Simmons, who they have not played with yet. So I think it's like less of a what can go wrong because it seems like every factor has been going against them all season.
I also think his affiliation with KD probably means more than any affiliation he's had with the franchise as far as his loyalty to stay. If KD was a free agent as well, I'd have more concerns. But with KD locked up, I think it makes it a lot more certain that Kyrie probably comes back.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I hope so because I want to see that team at full strength next season. I think Ben Simmons, he's got a point to prove, and I feel like this is the perfect situation for him. So I think next season is probably their window, but they're still going to be a scary out no matter who they play in the first round this year.
100%. 100%.
So what's up, man? Y'all want to talk about the Bulls? Because I'm kind of worried. I'm worried. I'm worried about the Bulls, man. And I feel bad because I made that DeMar DeRozan video like maybe a month ago, and they've been terrible ever since. Like they have been garbage. And man, it's like if my dad watches this, this is for my dad. Lonzo Ball is that impactful, bro. They have not been the same team without Zoe. Like he is that impactful. And I know this team lacks like rim protection and stuff, but man, like the stuff Zoe does really goes under the radar, and they are missing that severely right now. And it's to the point where they might be a playing team by the time, playoffs roll around. So I'm worried about the Bulls. I'm very worried about them.
Yeah. I mean,
they play the Cavs tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely worrisome as of late. I mean, they've genuinely been one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And that's just the reality of it. Like they've probably been the 11th or 12th best team in the conference at best.
If they play the Cavs tonight, lose, then them and the Cavs have the same record, and the Raptors also play tonight. So then if the Raptors win their game, all three of them have the same record. And the fact that out of those 3 teams, the Bulls have been playing the worst, that's not a good omen. If you're tied with them with like 6 games left to go and this is not when you're playing your best, there's a good chance both of those teams play better than you.
I think out of those 3 teams, I'm more confident in Toronto.
Yeah.
I love what the Cavs have done, but I'm just not confident in them in a 7-game situation. I think the Raptors, they got the head coaching. They got the guys that they trust. They're going to run their 6-7-man rotation, and they trust those guys. And the way Pascal's been playing, that's scary, bro. I feel like that will translate into the postseason. So I'm more confident in them than the Cavs and especially the Chicago Bulls. Even though the Bulls beat the Raptors like last week, I don't really count that too much.
I mean, the Raptors' last piece just came back with OG returning, and it's like Lonzo and Jared Allen are both still out. So, yeah, I would probably take the one at full strength.
Yeah, I think the Cavs with Jared Allen are definitely a bit of a different beast, but I still think anyone at the top of the Eastern Conference right now would be quite happy to play the Cavs. They haven't been anywhere near as good in the second half of the season, especially since Jared Allen's been out, and that's understandable. He's been a very big piece of what they've done this year. He's an all-star for a reason. But still, all in all, a very successful season for the Cavs. No one thought they'd be anywhere near where they are. But I think the Raptors are definitely the team to be feared more out of those 3 at this point in time. Let's just discuss the hypothetical here. The Bulls, we're talking about them potentially sliding down to the 7 seed. They're not playing great. Charlotte and Atlanta have actually been playing decent basketball lately. Both have got more than over 500 basketball in their last 10 games. Assuming the Bulls are the 7 seed, do they get into the playoffs or do they get bounced in the play-in tournament?
It's crazy because I saw somebody on TikTok saying, I don't think the Bulls are going to make the playoffs. And I'm like, oh. I think they would make it. I think they would make it. I find it hard for them to lose 2 games. I feel like DeMar and Zach they're too good to lose 2 playing games, especially against a team like the Hawks, who I think they've beaten the Hawks like maybe 3 out of 4 times this season. Like they've been pretty good against the Atlanta Hawks this year. And the Hornets, I like the Hornets, but I just don't fear them. I really don't. I don't fear that team at all. So I would take the Bulls in that situation. But the fact that we're even at this point, because like a month ago, they were like the 2 seed. They were like a game back of the 1 seed. And now we're talking about they have a chance to not even make the postseason. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, the game would happen in Chicago if that were to occur. And the Hawks are 13-23 on the road, and really it's like 12-23 because Madison Square Garden is the Hawks' home arena. So I don't think they can go out and win a must-win road game. So I'd have to take the Bulls from that regard. And just the fact that the Hornets don't play any kind of defense at all, I don't think that's a recipe that you have a one-off. You need to win this game, especially Hornets need to win 2 games in a row. If you don't play any defense, I'm not putting any stock in you.
I'll say this, though, real quick. Since it is March Madness, Trae Young is one of those dudes that can win you one game. He is one of those guys. Like, Trae Young, he is elite. Like, he is elite this year. Like, he is arguably a top 3 point guard in the league this season. That's saying something because guys have been off the charts. He's one of those dudes that can win you one game. In a one-game situation, Trae Young can go off for 45, 15, and get you to win.
All right, so y'all just want to go through real quick, keep it kind of short, sweet to the point, unless it's like really worth debating. Y'all want to do a little contender versus pretender?
I'm with it.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm
That's
with it.
smart.
All right. Obviously, we've already talked about a couple of the teams. We talked about the Bulls just now. At the end, we've had a little bit of Heat talk, a little bit of Nets talk, but starting in the East, I guess we'll just give a one-word answer because we already talked about the Heat. Contender or pretender?
I would still say contender.
Yeah, I'd say contender as well.
It's shaky, though, but I'm going to say contender.
Yeah, I would say contender, lower tier contender, but contender. Next one is pretty interesting. Philly.
Contender for me.
I'm going to say pretender. I don't think they're built right now for playoff basketball. I don't. They don't have the shooting. Their defense is a little shaky. And Harden and Embiid shoot a lot of free throws. In the playoffs, that's not going to be the case, man. You got to go and get buckets. I'm going to say for this season, they're a pretender.
I think I would agree with pretender. I feel like it's very hard to rely on free throws and then contributions from outside players. Obviously, you have Maxey, but beyond him, there's not really a lot of super consistent production. So I don't think this is their year. Milwaukee.
Easily contender.
Definitely a contender. They're my favorite out of the East.
I would say so, too.
Defending champion. Still pretty much have every piece that got them there. Yeah, contender. There's not really much of a conversation to have. I think the next one might be just as obvious. The Boston Celtics.
They got to be
Easily.
contenders.
No, all bias aside, because if they were playing bad, I would definitely let y'all know. Other than the Bucks, that's the team in the East. Other than the Bucks, that is the team.
Completely agree.
Defense wins championships, and the Celtics have the best defense in the league, and in 2022, by far the best defense. So,
real
peaking
quick,
at the right time.
They've been beating the shit out of people. Like, good
Exactly.
teams. They've been beating everybody by like 20 plus. I'm like, bro, it's kind of crazy, bro. It's looking scary.
Yeah, they're holding NBA teams to under 100 in 2022. Like,
Crazy.
that's not a big thing, especially with this recent scoring surge. Just like everybody's scoring on everybody big except Boston.
Yeah.
This is another probably one-word answer. Chicago.
Pretender.
Pretender.
But it's fine. I don't think anybody expected them before the season to be a contender. But just the way the season has flipped on them, it's a little disappointing.
Unless Lonzo starts playing like LeVar against Michael Jordan, it's not their year.
Yeah, I had them at the 7th seed to start the year, so they're doing fine. It's just, as
I
you
had them
mentioned, their expectations since they started playing well at the start of the year just shut up.
I'm gonna hold this to a future conversation, but I think they probably need a coaching change. I think they're towards the top of that list. I'll save that.
I was gonna say in the last segment, if they miss the playoffs, does Billy Donovan get fired?
I think
He
Donovan
has to be.
If you lose 1 or 2 players and your team completely falls apart, bro, like your schemes clearly are not the reason you were winning. It's the talent on the court.
That's
Either
tough.
that or your schemes are very fragile.
That's tough. Hopefully they make the playoffs then. 'Cause I like Billy Donovan as a coach.
All right, and then just out of fairness, but I feel like these are a little more like not expected to be contenders.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Yeah,
Pretender.
Not their year.
But
Give them a few years.
yeah. Agreed.
All right, Raptors.
Yeah, same thing. Give them a couple of years. Let Scotty develop. If they actually get a bench, there's potential there, but they're a couple of years away still.
Yeah, to me, both of these last two are upset watch in the first round, but it's very difficult to see them making a deep run. I think the only reason I went this deep is because we need an answer for Brooklyn.
I still say Pretender. Like I said earlier, I don't think this is their year, but they can still make real noise. That's because they have two super elite guys. They can make some real noise.
Yeah, I probably have them as a contender for that reason. They are quite low on my contender list, but I still think with Kyrie and KD, they have a chance to make that type of push and get to the finals. I do have questions about the rest of the roster, but I think that those two alone as a duo give me enough confidence in saying they're a contender.
I would say, yeah, they're at the very bottom of my contender tier. They obviously always have a chance with ISO heavy down the stretch basketball, but very unlikely, I think, that they'd have to be really like three great teams. If they stayed at the 8 seed, they have to beat Miami, Boston, and the Bucks or Philly, whichever one, to get to the finals, and that's a tall task. So with that, here's probably the most obvious one of the whole video. Phoenix Suns, contender or pretender?
The team, they are the team to beat.
100%. 100%. They're the favorite right now, and there's good reason for it. They're playing their best basketball of the year right now as well.
We're gonna have to talk Devin Booker MVP after this segment. We got to speak on. I want to hear y'all's thoughts.
Okay. All right. I think this next one is probably a bit of an interesting one. The Memphis Grizzlies.
They're pretenders for me this year. I think in a year or two, contenders for sure. I don't believe them enough this year though. This is a good team, but I don't trust them enough come playoff time. I think Ja is going to be still obviously very impactful in the playoffs, but if he can't hit his three down consistently, I think that's going to hurt come playoff time as well. And after that, they don't have another elite creation or shot-making option. Dylan Brooks can do it. Desmond Bane can do it. I think they'll get there. I think Desmond Bane eventually will probably be that number 2 guy. But as of right now, for this season, especially considering from the get-go, they're going to have a tough matchup either against Denver or Minnesota. I have them as a pretender.
It's crazy because I can see this team making the conference finals, and I can also see them going 7 in the first round against Minnesota. For the fact that I can see them reaching the conference finals, I'm going to say they're a contender. Because if you can make it that far, you have a chance. And if you have a guy like Ja, you have a chance. So they're just over the contender. They're on the contender side, but just barely. They're there.
To me, they're a pretty sizable contender. I think if I were having to pick a favorite in the Western Conference, I think the top 3 are the top 3. And I think if you're a top 3 threat to win your conference, to me, you are a contender because it's like they have the superstar, and yes, I'm calling Ja superstar. I don't even think that's that much of a hot take now, given the media attention and his performance and everything surrounding that. And then with how good his team is without him even playing, it shows they have a good supporting cast, good coaching, good, just great team all around. It's not just the Ja show with a bunch of nobodies. It's Ja and a bunch of also really great players. Probably the most depth of any team in the league. They're very scary. And I don't know the last time where injuries didn't play a major factor in who won the title. And with that being said, the team with the most depth is always going to be a great threat. So to me, they have to be a contender.
They really just got guys everywhere that produce, bro. Like DeAnthony Melton had a 23-point game the other night. You mentioned Dylan Brooks. Zaire Williams was supposed to be a project player, but he's played very impactful minutes. Desmond Bane really took a big leap this season. Jaren Jackson's a depoy candidate. And they're 16-2 without Ja, I think. They've won a lot of games without Ja Morant.
I know it's something into because they've just continued to win while he's been out recently.
Look, man, yeah. Sometimes you do shorten the rotation in the postseason, but I think this is a team that's going to thrive with their strength in numbers. So, man, they're going to be a tough team, man. Taylor Jenkins, Monty Williams is coach of the year, but if it wasn't for Monty Williams, he would easily be coach of the year in my book.
Yeah, and with Ja resting right now, he might be a little fresh coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, and they basically got the 2 seed. They got the 2 seed locked up, basically. So they'll be fine.
Okay, next one is kind of a little, maybe a little divisive, but we'll see what you guys say. Golden State.
Is it the Warriors? Warriors.
Yeah.
They're still a contender. They're still a contender. As long as Steph comes back healthy, they're still a contender.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely have me a little bit worried with how they've played over the last month or so. Even since Draymond has been back, it still hasn't been all great. But as you mentioned, right, Steph has been missing some time. Of course, Draymond has missed a significant amount of time. They haven't had a ton of time where they've all three of them, Steph, Clay, and Curry, been healthy. Clay had one of his, if not his best game of the season since returning the other night. So shout out to him. He's been looking a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable. He just needs to continue to keep things simple, just continue to fill in his role. When he tries to do a little bit too much and act like he's better than he is, which even as he is still a very darn good player, that's when things can start to go a little bit wary for him. But I think as a full three-man healthy, Curry's back, Draymond's healthy, Clay's doing his thing, I think this is still a contender in the West.
To me, I would have them on my contender list, probably right above Brooklyn, but right below Miami. So, pretty low-level contender, but they could definitely get it done. I think the main reason for me is that health thing. It's the fact that all three of them have barely been together this season. Are we just going to expect that they're magically all three able to be together in the playoffs? I don't know. And if all three of them can't stay on the court together, I don't really know how much they're doing. But if they have all three of them, they have Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins plays first half this season Andrew Wiggins and not second half this season Andrew Wiggins. They could still pull something off, but I don't think it's too likely. Moving on, I think the next one, the Utah Jazz are pretenders. If you guys have any objections there, you can let me know. But the Utah Jazz are pretenders.
It's crazy because one of my boys that I know through TikTok, he was saying, he made a video on them the other day, and he was saying, I still got confidence in them. I'm like, nah, bro. Nah. My confidence is so dead in this team. After when they went into Boston the other night and just completely just didn't show up, I have no faith in this team. And they lost last night to the Hornets. They might be a first-round exit away from blowing this core up or making some type of big trade in the offseason. Because, man, this team is not going to get any better than what they were last year.
Yeah. Half the reason I want them to do this, Dallas. Give me the Dallas take.
Contenders, fully. They are, if not my second, then at worst my third favorite out of the Western Conference right now. Since the trade deadline, since Spencer Dinwiddie's been added, they've looked like one of the best teams in basketball. Luka Doncic has been playing very well. Spencer Dinwiddie has been playing arguably the best basketball of his career. Not quite the production that he was putting up in Brooklyn, but his efficiency has been absurd. Jalen Brunson continues to do his thing. Dwight Powell and his pick-and-roll game with Luka has looked much more comfortable. With him getting more consistent minutes, staying healthy, and Kristaps out of the team. I think this team is just more successful without Kristaps Porzingis. Not to say that you don't need talent around Luka, but I think they just need a talent around Luka that don't need plays run from them, don't need their isolation touches as much as Kristaps does, because Brunson and Dinwiddie can still do that for them. But from a coaching standpoint, from a game plan standpoint, you don't need to think, okay, I need to get 10, 15 touches where Kristaps is doing something. You don't have to do that as much with Brunson or Dinwiddie. They can get their production a little bit more naturally through the flow of the offense. They can run the offense when Luka's not on the court, which makes it a lot easier for Luka to actually get some amount of time off the court. Not that he still doesn't play significant minutes. But I think this team is just much better built to succeed around Luka, and I think their defense has been much improved as well. I'm still not sold on them being a favorite by any stretch. I still do consider pretty much everyone out west to be weaker than a lot of the teams in the East outside of the Suns. But I like them more than the Grizzlies. I certainly like them more than the Jazz. And depending on the day you ask me, I'd put them ahead of the Warriors as well.
That was well said. My guy Pierre from Through the Wire, he said this about the Celtics, like less is more for that team. Same thing for the Dallas Mavericks. Less is more for them because Luka is just that damn good. And like you said, like Dinwiddie's not like what he was in Brooklyn, but his efficiency has been off the charts. He's been really good. Jalen Brunson's been playing great all year. And they just got guys that just make big plays. Dorian Finney-Smith, he deserved every penny that he got in that contract extension. He's a big-time player. Jason Kidd's done a hell of a job coaching this team, man. He was getting a lot of, flack early on in the season. Guys need to, give him his flowers because he's done a very good job with this team. And I feel like they might not be top 2 contenders in the West for me. Like you said, you're very, very high on them, Devin. But I could see them being like the third team that can make a lot of noise because Luka is just that good. Like Luka, I don't think we've seen him play with talent that fits with him so well. Other than like this team right here, I feel like this team fits with Luka so well. And I'm excited to see what they do in the postseason, man. Nobody wants to play this team in the first round at all.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. Excuse if you can hear the sirens in the background. City things.
Oh, good.
But yeah, to me, I just don't think this is their year. I think they built something really well. It's been working out pretty dang well for them, but I just don't really see a world where they get out of the second round. I think this will finally be the year where Luka wins his first playoff series. I definitely think that they can overcome the Jazz. But you got the Suns in the second round, and even if you didn't, you'd have like the Grizzlies in the second round. I can't picture the Mavericks beating either of them in 7, just given the Grizzlies' overall consistency. Like the Mavericks have been nice, but this is a team that just lost by 20 to the Timberwolves. They lost to the Hornets by 20. There's just a lot of nights where they come out and they just aren't on it. Lost by double digits to the Sixers as well. It's like they've had a lot of really good performances, but they also have a fair amount of bad performances. And just that overall inconsistency really doesn't sell me too well on them. But given the way that they play when they play well, I do think come next year, they really could be in that conversation.
Well, Devin said this is the year. This is the year that they can make a big push.
No guarantee Jalen Brunson is back next year, so that's the one concern moving forward. Not to say that they wouldn't still be fine without him, but he's a big part of this team, and I don't think they'd probably replace him. And that definitely could be part of the thought process with bringing in Dinwiddie. They're still a good team without Brunson, no doubt, but that's definitely a piece that they lose. Now they're kind of in that scenario again where they probably don't have as much creation as playmaking as they would like, because you'd have Luka and you'd have Dinwiddie, but then that would be about it. So
yeah, keeping Brunson's got to be their top. That's got to be their top priority. I think he's probably been their second best player all season. I feel like that's not too much of a stretch to say.
I can agree with that. Luka was giving his praises to him on JJ Redick's podcast as well. He very much echoed similar thoughts. So,
and so they got to bring him back. It's just given those top 3 teams, I can't see the Mavericks putting together a super deep run. But as a team that'll I think they can probably push the Suns to like 6 if everything falls right. But I don't even think they'll force a game 7 in round 2. And given that, they'd probably have to be on my pretenders list, but at like the closest pretender to a contender.
Yeah, that Suns matchup is just the way they've been playing. Chris Paul just coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't see any. I hate to say it, man. I just really do. I feel like people are kind of overthinking it. Like I feel like this team is head and shoulders better than everybody. And they've been showing it all season long, bro.
Yeah,
like,
they just are.
God forbid an injury to anybody. I don't see anybody beating this team in a 7-game series. They're too good.
9 games ahead of the second best team in the league, and that's with Chris Paul missing significant time.
Who's next on the list? Is this Minnesota or
should be
no?
Denver?
Next is Denver, and I think this one is interesting because I think it's twofold. I think you have to say the hypothetical where the big three is back and the hypothetical where they're not.
I think even if they come back, pretenders, even if they come back, that's asking so much for Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. Like, hey, we need y'all to be 20, 25 points in the postseason. That's a lot to ask for them, man. But you got Jokic. You'll have a chance to make a first-round series very interesting. Maybe win it. You never know. Jokic is that good. But even if they get past the first round, I think that's where the party ends for them.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. Even if Jamal Murray and MPJ are back, it's not going to be to anywhere near what we know of Jamal Murray and MPJ. Like, at best, they got even if they were back tomorrow, which they're not going to be, they got 3 weeks to figure it out for the start of the playoffs. It's not enough time for the severity and the significance of the injuries they had to rehab, to get in shape, to get in game shape for playoff basketball, never mind for the start of a regular season. So like you said, they might get a first-round win out of it even then, depending on their matchup. That might be tough. This is a contender moving forward once Jamal Murray and MPJ are healthy again, hopefully. But I don't think this year's their year.
I would have to agree. I think no matter what happens, once again, they won't have enough time to mesh and just time to really get everything right where it needs to be to make a push. So a pretender, just because they have such a great play that I could see him stealing a couple games, but I can't see Jokic in this supporting cast stealing 7 against the top 3 team in the conference.
Agreed.
Now we get to I feel like really it's only about 7 deep. I think we can mention Minnesota. I'll give them their respect because they've done a lot of really good things. I think below them, there's not really any team that even comes into the conversation of contender.
Not at all.
So I'll get your takes on the Timberwolves, and that'll be the last one.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves are still pretenders. I've really liked what I've seen from them this year, though. I think as of late, over the last month to 2 months, they've been playing the best basketball we've seen from any Minnesota team in pretty much our lifetimes. At least since our time we've been watching the NBA. They've been really good. D'Angelo Russell's been good. Anthony Edwards has been very good. I'd still like to see more consistency from him, but that'll come with time. Cat's been playing some of the best basketball of his career. Pat Bev's been doing his thing. Vando's been doing his thing. Their depth has been playing very well. Shout out to Taurean Prince, who's been playing some of the best basketball of his career since his time in Atlanta. But they're not quite at the talent level of some of these teams yet. I think they have the upside to get there, depending on how much Anthony Edwards is going to continue to develop. I think he's the potential ceiling raiser for this group moving forward. This is far from the best of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think the best is still to come from them, but they're a pretender for the time being.
Yeah, to me, it's based off of those matchups. Sorry, I'll let you go first.
Oh, I was basically just gonna say, like, yeah, that's well said by Devin. It's just what they've done this season is very impressive, especially like the start of the season. They were just like really 500 basically for the first 40 or so games, and I was kind of worried like they might fall out of that, playoff race. But I mean, they've been leading the pack, man. They've been at the 7th seed for basically the last month and a half, maybe 2 months, and it's just a shame that they might still have to play a playing game because they've been one of the best teams in the West for like the last month or so. But still a very impressive season from them, but they're still on the pretender side, but the future is very bright.
Yeah, I'm wishing for them to pass up Denver. Just I don't want to have their spot in jeopardy. I feel like I can really trust Jokic to pull out a game in a play-in situation. While I do think Cat is great, it's like we've just seen the Timberwolves fold too many times. And so I don't even want to have a chance of that. But, yeah, I think what stifles them is just that Grizzlies matchup in the first round is so scary. It's like if they matched up with the Warriors in the first round, I would give them significantly more of a chance. But even then, it's like, yeah, not yet. Still a little bit too young, still a little bit of ways to go, maybe a couple pieces to really round out the edges of this team. But they're close to having something really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think their bench is just going to keep getting better as well, assuming they keep guys alive. Like Jalen Noel has shown some promising signs. McLaughlin's looked decent at times. So, like, even just outside of Anthony Edwards, I think there's still a lot of internal development to come from this team as well. McDaniels as well has to get his credit in there as well.
So I guess we're kind of – I feel like if we look at what we've all kind of agreed on here, then our top 3 contenders are the Bucks, Celtics, and Suns.
I agree with that. Definitely.
I'll say that, yeah. Which is crazy. I would never thought in December that my Celtics would be a top 3 contender in the NBA. That's something I have not been able to say for like 10 years.
That's got to be one of the biggest in-season turnarounds that's ever happened in the NBA. From like not as a result of a trade or a move or someone coming back from injury, just same team, but just figured it out.
Yeah, like I think their biggest – sorry.
I was going to say, like, the Derek White trade was, like, cool, but it wasn't, like – they was already turning it around before, and that was just, like, an added piece. Yeah. So, it's crazy.
The biggest in-season turnaround I think I've ever seen is probably – if you guys remember that Heat team from, I think, 2017, that they started, like –
yeah.
It was, like, 10 and – they finished 31-10, so then they went 41-41, missed the playoffs, but it was, like, 10-31 and you finished 500. That was insane.
Was that Waiters Island? Was that Dion Waiters?
That was when Dion Waiters was cooking the KD Warriors.
Dion, man. Shout out to him.
Philly cheese, bro.
Dion, that's crazy. But I want to talk because the MVP discussion has been coming up a lot, especially on social media. And it's kind of weird how Devin Booker, like if this was like 5-6 years ago, they would be saying D Book is like easily like a top 2 candidate because he's on the best team, best player on the best team, and he's been elite. But now it's like his name doesn't even really get brought up. And I'm curious, like, what's y'all's thoughts on the MVP race? Are people making it too deep? Like, is it still just like a 2-man race, or should maybe guys like a Devin Booker or John Morant get more love than they are?
I think it is still pretty much just a 3-man race between Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic. And if you want to argue it's a 2-man race, then I think that's probably a fair argument as well. But I think there's definitely reason to discuss guys like Ja and Booker, who I think have definitely had very good seasons. I think at this point in time in the season, it's probably too late for guys to really assert themselves. I think Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid have just been so far ahead of the pack for about a month or so now that it's tough for anyone else to really assert themselves. Like, there's a lot of guys who are probably a tier below that when you're looking at Booker, Ja, Luka, guys like that. And they're very good. They're definitely contention for top all-NBA teams. But I think once it's this late into a season, I think it's tough to really push your way into that conversation for MVP. But like you said, Tyrik, in previous years, a number 1 seed with the player performing as well as Devin Booker would have gotten so much more attention earlier on in the year for the MVP conversation. And maybe it's parts to do with just, of course, the narratives that play into the MVP award, as we all know, and the fact that the Suns aren't exactly the biggest market or media coverage team in the NBA. But the fact that he hasn't gotten more love up until kind of the last few days is relatively surprising, given the fact that they have been the 1 seed and comfortably the 1 seed all year.
Yeah, I think the thing with Devin Booker is like the 2017 to we'll say like 19 Warriors. It's like they had KD and Steph, and they were both like almost as good as each other. And so that's why neither of them really got MVP considerations, because while they were the best team in the league, it was like, to me, I think KD was like probably the second best player in the league. Steph was third. So I think KD was a bit better. But I don't think the gap was big enough to where it was like, oh, KD is leading this team to 67 wins. I feel like most people don't see that big of a gap between Book and CP3. And I think that's why for most of the season, they really didn't put him in those talks. Because if you see, like, most of the guys that are in the talks, it's like them, and then their second best player is significantly below them. It's like Embiid to most of this season, it was Tyrese Maxey or Tobias Harris. Nikola Jokic to, like, Aaron Gordon. It's a pretty sizable dip. And so I really think that's probably why it's coming up a little bit more now, because CP's been out. But I don't think that was really long enough for it to be like, oh yeah, Book himself is leading this team to this place. But real
I
quick,
just
while we're talking about MVP and like that race, would you guys agree with the notion that it seems like sometimes players kind of move beyond MVP status, if that makes sense? Like, I feel like sometimes a player gets so ingrained as like a top 2 or 3 player in the league that it's like everybody knows they're a top 2 or 3 player, but then they don't win the MVP. Like, it was LeBron for a while. Like, LeBron, KD, and Steph were like, to me, the best 3 players from like 2015 to like 2019. And from there, like KD and Bron were not winning MVPs. Steph won
yeah.
his 2, but then after that, like he was still one of the best players in the league, but he wasn't getting it anymore.
I think voters fatigue is a real thing. I think that's why, like, even though Giannis was still amazing last year, he wasn't even in any talks. Nobody was thinking about Giannis. But it's it's a shame for real because I feel like we're in an era where people get bored with greatness, and we've seen that with LeBron over like the last decade, and even like KD only has one MVP, so it's definitely a real thing. I think another thing that has like kind of hindered that is like the criteria has just changed so much over the years, which is like back when Steph won his first MVP, he won that award strictly off of being on the best team in basketball. I think they won like 67 games that year. He wasn't putting up amazing numbers. He was having like 24 and 7. Like his numbers weren't amazing, but he's the best player on the best team. And now we're to the point like after Russell Westbrook doing historical stuff, it's like, man, you got to have an off the chart season. You got to break some records or break some advanced stats records, and it's just like it's all over the place. And there's no consistency now. You see it with people who speak on it in the media. Then you got people on TV like Nick Wright saying like, oh, well, this guy's just not flashy enough. Like it's all over the place, man. The media needs to do a better job of stipulating what makes an MVP player, because right now I don't understand what makes an MVP player. It's just like we just kind of see guys and we're like, oh, they're playing like MVP caliber basketball.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the MVP is probably one of the hardest awards to discern how the media actually judges it in the NBA. Like most improved player, usually a statistical thing, whether you like it or not. That's typically how it is. Sixth man of the year, usually the highest scoring sixth man. Again, don't necessarily always agree with that, but you kind of at least have an idea how the media is usually approaching it. But MVP over the last decade has changed so much from, like you mentioned, when Steph wins it on a top team to now where it doesn't really seem to be that case anymore. Now it seems to be who can have the most significant and outrageous individual performances throughout the year, not who can be a very good player still nonetheless on a top team in the conference or in the league, like Booker for the Suns. And to your point, Gabe, I think your point of people weren't really discerning who was better between Booker and Chris Paul for a large majority of the season definitely played into it, and why it wasn't a bigger part of the conversation. But yeah, it's tough. Like, it's hard. It's hard to know who should be the MVP and to predict such an award when the narratives on that and how the media seem to approach that award change pretty rapidly.
And really, once you win one, I think to get another one, you kind of have to top that most of the time. Now, there are occasions where somebody's like repeat MVP season won't be as good as the first, but usually that's because there just wasn't any real competition for it. It was like, this is clear in a way, just still top guy leading his team to the top things. But like, Giannis is playing great, but when Giannis has led his team to 60-win seasons, putting up pretty much the same stats, now leading your team to a 50-win season with those same stats, that's not going to win you the MVP. Especially when, if you compare the 2018-19 Bucks to the this season's version of the Bucks, this team is better. And so, really, having a better team and putting forth a less impressive season with the same stats, you're not going to win it repeat. I think. And then between Jokic and Embiid, I've always been team Embiid just because the Sixers were up here as a top 3 seed even before Harden came to town. And so to me, it was like, okay, Embiid's putting up stats pretty much as ridiculous as Jokic, as Giannis, as anybody else, being the solo star and still being like a top 2-3 seed. And so to me, my MVP pick is Embiid.
I'm Team Jokic right now. But I'm glad you brought up that 2019 MVP for Giannis because he won that strictly based off of advanced stats and he was on the best team. James Harden had the most incredible season that year, but Giannis won it because the advanced stats loved him and he was on the best team. And then it's like, then it changes like last year, Jokic, advanced stats, but he wasn't on the best team. He was like a 4 or 5 seed. It just it changes so much, bro. And it's so annoying. Like, I just don't understand what makes an MVP player now. Like, there might be like 5 guys this year that get first place votes. Like, that's just how outrageous it's been this season, but that's just also how all over the place the criteria is. So, I don't know. We might be talking about all these guys, and Jason Tatum might win MVP. Like, we don't even know. It's so crazy this year, bro.
Yeah, it really is. I feel like almost from the get-go, from a narrative standpoint, with how Embiid and Jokic have been in this year, with Jokic not having Jamal Murray and then MPJ going out early in the year, and Embiid not having Ben Simmons, you were pretty much at a disadvantage in the MVP race this year if you didn't have some type of detriment or injury situation on your team that you had to deal with, and in turn help the narrative of your MVP case, because the narratives are such an important part of the MVP race, like it or not. And the fact that those guys had their star or stars not with them pretty much since the start of the year, with MPJ going out in the first few weeks, it made it tough for anyone else to build up that type of narrative to really assert themselves in that MVP conversation. You had to have an unreal season or face some type of adversity while having a very good season.
Yeah.
Yeah, given traditional criteria, I feel like if it was strictly traditional criteria, the precedent set, I feel like the top 3 this season would be Embiid, then honestly Ja, and then probably after that you're looking at like Jokic or Giannis, or because I feel like somebody can usually come in third without one of the aspects. And to me, like with Jokic, that's the winning, and then Giannis topping his previous MVP season, kind of missing one of those things. You can come in third. But the top 2, Ja has a great supporting cast, kind of like Curry in 2015. But he's like the main star on a great team. And so that's kind of like something we've seen. And then obviously I made the case for Embiid before. But yeah, really that precedent got thrown out the window because Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double.
Yes. That changed everything. Even though it was an amazing season, it really changed how people have differing perspectives on what makes an MVP. And it's just, I feel like the NBA might be the only major professional sport that's like that. I don't know how hockey is, but in the NFL, it goes to the best quarterback. Whoever had the best season, that they're going to win the MVP. Baseball, they really just give it to, like, they don't care if you made the playoffs or not. Who's the best? Like, who had the best season? That's who they give it to. The NBA, it's like, we need the narratives. We need the advanced stats. You got to be impactful defensively too. It's like, it's everything. It's kind of annoying at this point. I'm not gonna lie.
I think it's because basketball has always been that sport where it looks like one person can impact winning. Like you think even back to like Allen Iverson winning MVP, it's like notoriously known as a carry job, which he had a pretty underrated core around him defensively. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was that main offensive guy. But then offense is traditionally known as greater than defense when it comes to looking at stuff like this. So solo guy carrying offensively, it's like, oh, he's carrying them to the wins. Whereas in football, bro, when your team's on defense, if you're the quarterback, you're not on the field. And then baseball, it's like, bro, Mike Trout has been the best player in baseball for like a decade, but what have the Angels done? It's like, I think because of players like, I like LeBron and other players being so transcendent that they can lead a team great places by themselves, it just raised the bar. And now it's like, oh, now if you're not leading a terrible team to a great place by yourself, that MVP.
Man,
they really just need to get rid of the MVP and just call it the best player award, and then it just makes it easy.
It would make it easier, but then I don't know, people, the old heads would be mad, like, oh, Back in my day, we had to fight and claw for the MVP. We had to throw punches to win the MVP award.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they say Jordan versus LeBron debates would be like, oh, Michael Jordan would have 15 MVPs. Oh, but LeBron would have 18.
I don't think we mentioned this. Shout out to LeBron, number 2 all time in scoring. We didn't have the episode
Moving
last
Karl
week. But shout out
Malone
to LeBron.
down. Moving Karl Malone down.
We love to see it, man. We love to see it.
I think we gotta get into this real quick though. Are the Lakers making the playoffs? Are they even making the play-in? Because look at this, y'all. 2 games ago, the king of Cleveland, returned to his homeland, had a 38-point triple-double, and a double-digit win. But it still hasn't been enough. This team is still 11 games under 500. So will the king and his subjects be able to make it to the first round?
And we calling them subjects now, bro. That's kind of
They
disrespectful.
playing like it. I ain't gonna lie. It feels like it's like LeBron. His right hand man is like Malik. Melo is pretty cool. Westbrook, the jester of the court.
Stanley Johnson. Shout out to Stanley Johnson.
Stanley
He's
Johnson.
been like their 3rd best player.
Facts.
Nah, hold up. Westbrook's actually been pretty good lately. We'll give him his respect there. He's been pretty good, but they have a tough stretch to finish the season. LeBron's missed the last couple games, if I'm not mistaken. He's missed a couple games recently.
He's been pretty much day to day every game, I think.
That's not a good sign, man. I think the Spurs are right on their tail, so
2 games back.
There's a possibility. There's a possibility that this team does not even make the play-in.
The Lakers
That's
play
wild.
the Pelicans, Mavericks, Jazz, Pelicans, Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, Thunder, and Nuggets. It's far from an easy stretch.
Sounds like a bunch of good teams.
They could probably get about 34 wins on the season.
To be fair, the Spurs have a pretty tough run as well, but they play the Pelicans, Rockets. Actually, they play the Trailblazers twice. Never mind. I missed that part. But they do play the Pelicans, Grizzlies, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Warriors, and Mavericks still as well. So definitely still a couple of tough games to make up. But it's definitely not a given that the Lakers are going to be in the play-in tournament, and that seemed a little bit more certain a while ago.
I think they will. I think especially if they can reach that 34 win mark, I don't think the Spurs with about 7 games left will reach 34. I don't think they'll finish 5-3. So realistically, given the fact, say the Lakers make the play-in tournament, 9 or 10 seed, whatever, their home and away record, actually their away record is pretty atrocious. So maybe having a 9 seed would factor in here. But I think the Timberwolves pretty much get out of the first play-in game regardless. So what's our thoughts on the Lakers beating the Pelicans and the Clippers back-to-back?
I'm not confident. I'm really not. AD should be back, per reports. Now, how well he'll be back and whether he stays healthy, of course, remains to be seen, as it always is with him, but he should be back. But the Pelicans have been playing very good as well, and assuming that Brandon Ingram is back, the Pelicans are not going to be an easy team to beat. I think their concern more currently is probably the Pelicans than the Clippers. I think if they get past the Pelicans, the Clippers are probably going to be a bit easier for them given how they're currently playing. But I still wouldn't count out a Clippers team that has played quite well against the Lakers, specifically Reggie Jackson.
I was about to say.
And specifically Ty Lue in the single game situation and how good of a coach he can be and how good of a game plan he can have set up. But I still think the Pelicans are probably the tougher team for them to beat, but that is not to say that the Clippers are going to be an easy team for them to get past. Given the fact they have to win 2 games, I don't love their odds, even with AD back.
Look, y'all know how I've been feeling about AD this year. I know he's been hurt, but even when he was playing, underwhelming in my eyes. I thought he was going to be MVP candidate this season. That's why I thought the Lakers were going to be still a contender. And it's wild that we're to the point where we're saying is the Lakers not even going to make the play-in. It's wild, man. But this team is just I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe it'll be better for them not to make the play-in because they'll just be giving their fans false hope. Like, we're gonna get the 8 seed and we're gonna make a crazy run. Like, no, y'all are not, bro. This team is not it. It's not it at all. I think they'll make the play-in, but I don't think they'll make the playoffs.
I can't count out the kid from Akron, bro.
Look, I said that
It's
last
so
year.
hard.
I said that last year. That's why I picked the Lakers to beat the Suns in the first round, and I was mad when I did that. And I said that this year. I'm like, the Westbrook fit is not ideal, but I trust LeBron that much. And it's not that it's LeBron; it's everything around him. I don't trust anything else. And this is not the LeBron of 2018 where he can take us three and somebody off the street and make it to the conference finals or the NBA finals. It's not the same LeBron, even though he's been incredible. It's just not that same guy. So I want to say that too, Gabe. I really do, but I think we just got to be realistic now.
LeBron in the play-in last year, 1-game situation. He was seeing 3 rims out there, and he just aimed for the middle one.
That Lakers team was way better than this team. That Lakers team was way better than this team. The only reason the Lakers were in the play-in last year because they had a bunch of injuries. That was a championship caliber team last year. They just had a lot of injuries that they dealt with. This team is not a championship caliber team, even though they have dealt with injuries. I even think if they played, if AD played more games, they're probably 500 at best, maybe right now.
If AD's healthy, they're probably still a playing team.
Exactly.
So
I don't know.
All right, hold up. If they play the Pelicans, predict LeBron's point total.
I don't think it matters. He might have to put up 60.
Yeah.
I think he'll drop like 40, and they still might lose. They still might lose.
It's crazy that we are to the point where LeBron James, at 37 years old, has to drop 40 points for this team to be competitive. That is sad. I feel bad for that at a certain point, bro. It's crazy.
It just makes me think back to RDC, bro. I'm 36.
Bro, like, man. And look, I love seeing the Lakers as playing bad just as much as anybody, but at a certain point, it's like, man, LeBron's still playing at this level, but we might not be able to see him in the playoffs because the team around him is just piss poor, to say the least, man. It's piss poor.
I love seeing Lakers fans in shambles.
Love it.
But, man, poor LeBron, bro. Poor LeBron. I'm saying poor LeBron as a Raptors fan, too. I had beef with LeBron for a long time. I'm over it now. We got our ring as soon as he left the conference.
Do y'all think if the Lakers miss the playoffs, is LeBron still going to make an All-NBA team?
Oh, yeah.
You should.
His individual accolades are more than enough to be All-NBA. He's also LeBron. Because
All-NBA, I think they really reward winning more than anything. Like All-NBA is kind of funky, man. I ain't gonna lie.
If Pascal Siakam makes it over LeBron James, we living in a crazy world. Now, trust me, I'm okay with that, but that's a crazy world.
I feel like it's gonna get really dicey this year, whether or not Jokic and Embiid are both able to sneak on the first team.
Yeah, I just saw a tweet from someone with the Denver Post like an hour ago. I probably won't be able to find it now, saying that they're going to be able to both be on the first team. I don't know where the credibility of that source is, but
they can, because apparently Jokic and Embiid can both be voted on as power forwards, which neither of them have played a single. Well, maybe Jokic has played some power forward this year because him and Boogie do share the court a little bit, but. That's just crazy, man, because it's like
there was some Embiid under Drummond lineups too, to be fair. So
if that's the case, it's gonna be Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic on the first team, and then second team gets a Tatum, DeMar, potentially if he's a forward. Then that's the forwards there. But I feel like LeBron's at least a third team guy. I think he'll make third team.
Yeah, I think so. I think it should just be a question of who that last forward spot is on the third team. I think LeBron should be in there for sure.
Yeah, if Embiid and Jokic are both first team, that center on second team is going to be Cat. So that's his spot.
Yeah,
for sure.
And who would be the third team? Would it be Rudy?
It's probably got to be Rudy. Yeah. If Bam had played a full season, then maybe he'd have a bit of an argument. But
I don't want to see Rudy make All NBA, bro. If
Give me Jared
Jokic and
Allen,
Embiid could
man.
just put Jokic and Embiid one on first team, one on second team, bro. Please. Do not put Rudy on the All NBA team.
Currently, I'd probably rather see Jimmy and Pascal both on the third team. But that won't happen, of course. But
Forgot about Jimmy.
Pascal's played some five. A little bit.
You said what?
Pascal's played a little five.
he has played a little five.
He's been better than Rudy.
A wee little, but a little bit.
It's crazy we're to the point where Steph Curry was like the MVP front runner, and now he's probably like a second team guard, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
potentially for sure.
Because first team is either first team.
It's John Book, bro. It's John Devin Booker.
Yeah,
Luka's been so good, bro.
So then you're talking about Luka still. You're talking about Steph. You're talking about Trae Young.
Ja's been the best guard in the league this year, and Booker has the 1 seed. You just said they value winning on All NBA, which means Booker gotta be there, and Ja's been the best guard in the league the whole season. It's not about the second. It's not about post-trade deadline, though. It's not about post-trade deadline. It's about the whole season, and Ja has just been better.
Yeah, he has. But back to Siakam for a quick second. 38% of his time, according to Basketball Reference, has been at center.
Impressive.
Oh, put that man at center, All-NBA. He's better than Rudy. Rudy Gobert is not an All-NBA player.
Give me Time Lord over Rudy.
That's slander. That is slander.
I ain't ready to put him there yet.
That's biased.
He's been good though.
I'm gonna be real though. He's my defensive player of the year. That might be a little biased, but he's my defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I got him up there.
Bro, I would high key. I'm so sorry, but I would low key pick Mikal Bridges. I'm sorry.
I'm not mad at that.
Mikal is just insane. The Celtics just got so many guys, and the Suns got a lot of guys, but
bro, Gabe, if you really watch Boston, Time Lord erases a lot. I might have to make a film breakdown on him because, bro, he really be working on that defensive side of the floor, man. It's very impressive.
I just watch Suns games, and I'm like, bro, Mikal can really guard anybody on the court well.
I agree. I would love to see a wing player win it. I would love that. I thought Ben Simmons should have won it last year, but that's just my opinion. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I'd like to see Mikal to win it would be nice. Definitely. Even Jaren Jackson Jr., even though he's technically a big, compared to Rudy Gobert especially, has a lot more versatility, can actually defend on the perimeter at an above average rate, and not for bigs, but just in general. So something that isn't just a rim protector would be nice.
In the era of versatility, it's got to be a versatile defender. But go ahead.
I got a question for y'all. Is Rudy going to be a Hall of Famer?
Probably.
Got 3 DPOYs.
I think the defensive player of the year is by itself will probably do it.
Bro, he really might be a Hall of Famer.
Is Ben Wallace in the Hall of Fame yet? Is Ben Wallace in the Hall of Fame yet?
Yeah, he just made it last
this
past year, I think.
Yeah.
Then he's not going to be first ballot, that's for sure. The thing is, Ben Wallace also got a ring and was a pretty iconic part of that team, and also made a second finals appearance the year after.
This is true.
So I think that Rudy at least needs to touch a conference finals or a finals in his career to really get there.
Do y'all think it would be that hard to trade Rudy? Because I feel like it may look like it on paper, but I feel like a lot of teams would be like, we could use Rudy Gobert's services.
I think
3-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA.
I find it hard to believe a lot of teams would be willing to give up a lot for him. I don't think it'd be hard to move him if they just wanted to move him, but I don't think they'd get significant assets back for him. This guy's going to be making $38 million next year.
That is a lot.
That's what makes it tough. If he wasn't on such a big contract, I think it'd be easier. But to say you're paying him 40+ mil minus next year for the next 4 years, that's tough. That's a lot of money to commit to someone like Rudy Gobert. So I think they'd still get something for him. I don't think it's anywhere near the point where they'd have to give up asset to get rid of him, but I also don't think they're looking at like 3 first-round picks and a young player to get him back or to get back for him by any stretch. I think it would be relatively limited assets compared to the value of Rudy Gobert.
If somebody trades for him, I think it's got to be one of those like middling teams that wants to become a consistent playoff appear, like playoff, somebody that consistently makes the playoffs. That's how I'll word that. But
you just got me thinking of something.
You've seen how he's been so like exposable in playoff series that if you're like a team that's like a perennial 4 seed and you want to be like a 1 seed, like finals contender, you're not picking him up because you see that he limits what you can do. But if you're like, if you're an 8-9 seed that wants to be a perennial 4 seed, you might pick. If you were Charlotte and you're like a 9 seed and you're like, oh, we don't play any defense, yeah, maybe you would pick up Rudy, and then you're like a consistent like 4 or 5 seed, maybe get like a 3 or 2 seed a couple times.
That's true.
But you're not contending for the finals.
To his defense though, he's really like relied upon so much to erase everything because the only other competent perimeter defender in that team is Royce O'Neal. And even he's not like super elite. He's good, but he's not like elite. Like they've never had like really elite defensive guys. Like they rely on Rudy to do everything. So when it is finally time for him to get picked on, it's pretty exploitable. I would like to see him in a situation where he has multiple guys around him that, you know, are actually competent defenders and they're not relying on, you know, Rudy to erase everything. I think that would be kind of interesting. Charlotte would just be the same old situation. They'd be a better team, but it'd be the same. I don't know why, but Dallas came to my mind. That could be kind of interesting. As a lob threat, Luka would feast off of that, bro. I don't know. That'd be interesting. It'd be what would they have to give up though? That's the question. But hey, sign and trade with Jalen Brunson, maybe a pick or something. I don't know. It could be interesting. That's all I'm gonna say.
If Dallas got Rudy, they're just strengthening a strength. They're not really strengthening a weakness. Because this team's already a top defensive team.
But Rudy is he's the best of what he does though. And rim protection is still very important. I feel like people kind of forget that. It's still a very important piece of winning the championship.
It's just if I'm the Mavericks and I'm giving out 30 mil, I would want to do it to address a weakness. You know, their weakness is more on like the offensive side. They can stagnate offensively still, even with their new pieces. The fact that you're already a top defense, investing $30 million more into your defense just doesn't seem like the best investment.
Defense wins championships. And also, like, one, what could Dallas do in a potential situation to bolster their offense? Like, there's not really that many guys available, and even if there are, they're not going to go to Dallas more likely than not in the free agency market. You'd have to make a trade. And, like, the only tangible piece they really have is Jalen Brunson. And it's like, what could he get you in return? Where would he be linked to if you could do a signing trade? I saw Detroit, but it's like the only guy competent enough to come back is like Jeremy Grant. And it's like, does Jeremy Grant make you that much better? I don't think so.
If I'm spending 30 mil, I'd probably look at like a Bradley Beal type before I look at a Rudy Gobert.
I mean, that's ideal, but it's like you never know what's going on with Bradley Beal. You might be waiting for him to be available, and he won't be available until he's like past his prime when he's like 32, 33 years old, the way he be talking. So I don't know. You gotta cash in on Luka while you can. That's all I'm gonna say. You gotta cash in. I'm not saying Rudy's the guy like the obvious dude, but if he became available, you at least gotta explore it because he would make that team a lot better. I think so. Like we might be looking at them right now like they're kind of a contender-ish. Devin's pretty high on them, but if they got Rudy, I feel like that solidifies them as like they can probably beat just about anybody.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think that would be a good fit in Dallas. A simple role for him defensively, but would still be very impactful. And I think is a good fit on offense with Luka as well. I just briefly want to take us back to Charlotte when we talked about a potential trade there. I agree with your point, Tyrik, that I think Rudy to Charlotte is pretty much a similar situation for him as he is in Utah right now. But it would potentially be interesting for Utah from a return standpoint. Miles Bridges is going to be a restricted free agent this summer. A potential sign and trade there would be quite interesting for Utah, assuming they could get a somewhat competent center back. I don't know if that's likely, and Charlotte would be willing to part with him, but I think it would be a very good fit in Utah nonetheless.
Ooh, that's interesting. I ain't gonna lie.
Man, talking about Utah, talking about Dallas, hey, I'm just saying, there's a bucket getter in Utah that might ask Allison. If we're talking about trading a Jazz player to the Mavericks, I don't know if Rudy's the one that I'm talking about. Bro, if you can get Donovan Mitchell to the Mavericks, they're getting at least one. At least one.
But, bro, you'd have to give up so much to get Dono. I feel like he's really just that good.
I think the Mavs would go all in. Mark Cuban seems like the kind of guy that'd be like, oh, we got Luka. Well, I need to capital. You just said we need to maximize Luka while we got it.
What they just don't got the assets though, bro.
That would be like I don't even know if they could offer a package Utah would accept, because they could offer all of their firsts. They don't really have that. Like, is Brunson enough of a current young piece? Say you offer Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr., and 4 first-round picks, and Josh Green. Like, do they even accept that? They probably can get better from somewhere else, assuming that Mitchell at that point in time is actually on the trade block.
The only way that happens is
how often, though? Like, how often that a team or like a player wants out of a team, so the player usually has more of the leverage, and then everybody goes online and they say, oh, yeah, they're going to give up this and this and this for this player, and then the actual return they end up getting is significantly less than that. It happens all the time.
I feel like Dono would have to like say, I want to go to Dallas, and I'm not re-signing anywhere or blah, 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 even though I think he's locked up. But he would have to say, I want to go to Dallas for that to happen, and they would have to really honor that. But if you got like 4 future firsts, even though picks are kind of overrated, you could probably spark a little rebuild, I think. Because if they don't make it out of the first round this year, I think big changes have to come. And even if you trade Rudy, like you said, Devin, like how much is that return? Probably not that much. Even if you do get a Miles Bridges, are you a championship team? Probably not. You still have the gaping hole now with Rudy being gone. So it's like teams put themselves in such a just weird spot. Kind of, they had their hand forced because nobody's going to Utah. You got to re-sign the guys that you have. So they're just in a bad spot. We talked about this before. So hopefully changes do come in the offseason, because I'm tired of watching the same story over and over and over and over again.
They've been the same team since like 2015. Donovan Mitchell is just better than Gordon Hayward.
Basically.
Facts.
Basically, man. It's crazy. It's so crazy, bro. I don't know. Rudy, him and Charlotte would be – I feel like it would be the same situation, but I feel like they would be a much better team. He's a floor-raising kind of guy on a team like that. They'll be a much better team. And LaMelo might force-feed him. He might average like 20 and 15 on that roster.
Facts. Yeah.
When it comes to East competition, I feel like Charlotte with a Rudy would still get cooked by like Miami or like the Bucks, probably Boston too. But they could probably give Philly some run. Teams below that.
I don't know. I'm interested to see how good LaMelo actually gets. Interested in that, man.
Yeah, I agree. Still got a lot of development ahead of him, no doubt.
The 2026 MVP LaMelo?
2026? That seems like a long time. How long before Luka wins an MVP, bro? How long before Luka wins an MVP? Because I feel like the last couple of years, people have been saying, like, he's going to be the MVP this year, and he just hasn't done it.
I feel like he's going to have to do some wild stuff, though, to become an MVP. He's just had such – similar to, like, Jason Tatum talked to, again, JJ Redick's podcast a couple of weeks ago, but similar to what Jason Tatum was talking about, he just had such high expectations at a young age that he just had to do absolutely wild things to get respect as having an average or above average season. And I think Luka's probably already and will continue to be in a similar boat where he just had such high expectations from such an early point on in his career, having such a good start from his rookie season, that he has to play absolutely out of his mind for people to even notice. And I don't think that's going to help him get in terms of getting an MVP either. Now, I think he'll get one over the next few years eventually, but he's going to have to play well, and Dallas are going to have to play very well for that to ever happen.
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty simple. It's that we keep saying that Luka's going to win MVP because the stats are there. What's not there is that the fact that Luka has never had home court advantage in a playoff series. And so until, like, they say you usually have to be a top 3 seed. Until he can even be a top 4 seed, I mean, you're not going to get that. This season, they might pass up the Jazz here at the very end, so he might have home court advantage for the first time. But I think you really got to get probably at least a top 2 seed, and that's really going to be what does it.
Who knows? The criteria might change again.
Facts.
If he added on 2 more rebounds and 1 more assist and averaged a triple-double, he'd probably get it. I'm going to be real.
That's the type of stuff he does in 2K simulation is 30-point triple-dubs.
In 2K, he's like 31, 11, and 10 all the time.
With ease, man. Real quick, bro. Have y'all been peeping how bad teams have been trying to tank recently?
It's been rough. And literally, right as I said, how the league has been competitive even from the bottom end teams, and then there just was a select handful of teams that wanted to stop playing well and just decided to tank for the pick.
Like the Pistons and Magic started winning games, and then the Pacers have done everything in their power to lose every game that they've lost. Even games that they've had won, they've somehow found a way to lose them. I bet y'all couldn't even name like 5 Trailblazer players right now that have been playing basketball games.
Facts.
Because when I look at their rotation, I'm like, I don't know half of these dudes. I know Drew Eubanks
out here being their leader.
And I think Josh Hart was getting minutes, but I think they stopped playing him because he was playing too good.
Yeah, man was balling. He's averaging like 22 a night or something like that. He's been playing really well.
I can't tell what the Knicks are doing at all. This is so weird. They're like winning some games right now, but like it's just super weird.
Yeah, I don't know what the Knicks are doing. I don't know. Shout out to RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. They've been playing really well as of late, but looks like Thibodeau might be back again next year, which is surprising to me, especially considering that he apparently doesn't really want to play Cam Reddish. They're in a weird spot. As they stand, like they're just, even if they play better than they did this year, even if that roster plays at their best and they stay healthy, I don't think they're much better than they were this year anyways. From a positioning and the standing standpoint, they're probably hovering around the 9 or the 10 seed at best. I don't know what the Knicks are doing. And quick shout out to Wendell Carter Jr. talking about teams in the bottom of the Eastern Conference. He's been playing really well as of late. If he continues to play that way next year, he honestly has a shot at an All-Star appearance. He's been playing really well.
Yeah, when he's playing with Paolo next year, that's going to be crazy.
Paolo, he's mid. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh yeah, sorry. When he's playing with Caleb Love next year, my bad. Cole Anthony and Caleb Love get the Magic's going to be Tyrik's favorite team.
Paolo's good. It's just when I watch him, I'm just not like super impressed. But he's good. He might be like the third dude off the board, but he's cool.
Hey, he's cool. Doug Eater might go to the Rockets, bro.
Since we give a shout outs, Jalen Green's been playing pretty good basketball second half of the season. And for somebody who was heavily criticized during his rookie year, he's been playing great basketball since the All-Star break. So I got to give a shout out to Jalen Green, 100%. Who was my rookie of the year pick, I must admit. And yeah.
Me too.
He's probably crept into the top 5 at this point, which isn't terrible, not great. But, I mean, it's also when the top 3 is like Cade, Evan, and Scotty, I mean, it's really hard to be in that top 5. So the fact that he's still able to get there after that disastrous start, very impressive.
I mean, yeah, let's put it this way. We were making jokes at some point in time on the podcast about him potentially not even being on the second all-rookie team, and he has an argument now to be on the first all-rookie team. So
definitely. I know, Devin, I think you made a video on this draft class.
Yes, I did.
This class really has a chance to be generational. I'm gonna say that because
fully
you
does.
look all the way through that first round. Talented players, bro. I was watching Trey Mann when they played Boston. Dude creates shots better than some NBA All Stars.
Facts. His
Like, bro, his
bag
skill level,
offensively and ability to get up shots and create space already is so good for a rookie. So good.
bro. He's gonna be really good, bro. This class really has a chance to be one of the best. And I saw somebody on Twitter say the other day how this upcoming class, people are saying like this is a bad draft class, and he was basically saying like I don't think there's ever gonna be a class that's like bad like ever again because the skill level of guys coming up in basketball now is so off the charts. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. It really, and I feel like there's way more guys nowadays that are like very impactful players in the back end of the draft than there used to be, and that was one of my arguments for this draft class being so good. And not to mention the fact that there's so many players at the top that could end up being all NBA caliber talents. When you look at Cade and Scotty and Mobley amongst others, I think Franz has high upside, Kuminga has high upside, Jalen Green has high upside. There's so many top end guys. But like already in their rookie years, there's so many guys that you can look at and see he's an NBA player, he's an NBA player, he's an NBA player. And that's not to mention guys that make that jump in year 2 or year 3. Like there's already so much talent within this draft class that you can just see that there's probably going to be comfortably over half of this draft class that has significant NBA careers, whether that's as role players or as some of these guys may be MVP candidates.
Man, there wasn't really that many misses. It's like if you look at the top of the draft, the worst player in the top 5 is probably like Jalen Suggs, and he's still like 12, 4, and 4, which really isn't terrible. Efficiency's not great, but it's like
He's still young.
he has not been as bad as many recent top 5 picks. And so for 12, 4, and 4 to be the worst player in the top 5 as a rookie, definitely not bad at all. And then even the depth that you guys have kind of already mentioned, it's like there's just so many guys that'll end up being solid role players, it looks like, too.
I mean, heck, there's even undrafted guys that are already looking really good. Like Austin Reeves is an undrafted guy. Brandon Williams, although I know has been heavily off of free throws, has looked really good with Portland since they started tanking. Terry Taylor has had moments where he's looked really good in Indiana. Like, there's so much depth to this draft class. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, even just like the whole top 20, basically, it's like most of them are doing solid things. Whole top 10, it's like second half of that is Giddey, Kuminga, Wagner, Mitchell, Zaire Williams. They've all been doing solid things, some better than others, but all contributing. James Bouknight's been a little bit in and out, but he showed some flashes. Chris Duarte came out of the gate pretty on fire, to be honest.
He leads that
Moody,
team in scoring.
Sengun, Trey Mann.
Hey, shout out Davion Mitchell's been playing really good.
Well.
Like since the Tyrese trade, he's been playing really good. Very impressed for real.
Facts. He looks a lot more like the offensive player a lot of people expected he could have been. He's been playing really well. For sure.
Yeah, Gabe, we was going through draft classes a few weeks ago at school. And remember, I think it was the 2018 class. We was looking at it. It was like, bro, there's like 30 or 40 like really good NBA players just from this draft class alone.
That's probably my favorite draft class. It's just so ridiculously deep.
One I think Gary Trent was like a second round pick, like 40 something overall. Like,
yeah, he was picked 37.
Yeah, this draft is deep, but it's not that deep. Like deep in this draft, you got like Jericho Sims gets solid minutes.
Herb Jones,
BJ Boston, Delano Banton for the Raptors, he gets pretty solid minutes. So there's some in there. Ayu Dosunmu was a second round pick. Herb Jones. There's some in there, but like, dude, 2018 was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's wild.
Definitely just impressed with the skill level of guys coming in. And I think this upcoming draft is going to be kind of similar. I feel like there might not be the star power that people are looking for, but there's going to be a lot of very solid NBA players coming out of this next draft class. Can't wait until we go into like our draft, time of the year. I think it's going to be pretty interesting.
I mean, this one might be kind of similar. It's like we've had a lot of good players, but really the only one that seems to be a number one option on his team right now is like Cade. Nobody else is like number one, so it kind of limits them becoming superstars. So only time will tell if some other guys move or if this class of rookies just passes up their teammates. But there's just so many good players now that you don't see like a guy get drafted and there's just nobody else on that team that's like the number one guy.
Yeah, it's unique this year too when you're talking about top end prospects and having other players on the team that are significantly better than them, so they're not having as good of a season because I mean Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley are on playoff teams, and that's not something you typically see for multiple top 4 picks in a draft. So that definitely has changed the dynamic as well. Thank you guys for all tuning in to the 3 Point Weekly podcast. We appreciate you guys. Be sure to leave a like down below, subscribe, leave a 5-star review. Whatever you need to do, wherever you guys are watching. Be sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section, and we'll see you guys again next week. Peace.